Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book fiends. Hi. Welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host. And this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. And this time, it's the Occult Files of Dr. Spektor. That's this is issue number 23 from 1976 from Gold Key Comics. Now, before we get into that, to remind you, my two books are available. Bizarre Brain Comics Anthology, which is some humor and with a little bit of adventure, and Bizarre Brain Comics presents Heroes, which is more mainstream. Some superhero stuff, a little bit of horror stuff, and all around good fun. Even have a Western story in there. So those are both available online from Amazon, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble online store, and other online book outlets for $7.99 each. I appreciate everyone who has ordered my book. Now, Dr. Spektor. I've talked about Dr. Spektor several times before. I loved Dr. Spektor, created by Don Glut, who was the writer, who wrote a lot of stuff for Gold Key at this time. Had also done stuff for the War and Horror comics, and he was a big fan of the horror stuff. He did also created Dagar at Gold Key, the Sword and Sorcery title, and suddenly Try Again, the Sky Gods, etc. I just got this copy, this issue, just a few months ago. I showed it on a haul video, but this is one that I had never seen before. And remember, Dr. Spektor is a horror host, but he's more than a horror host. This involved, especially when it started out, it was had the main story featuring Dr. Spektor involved in some supernatural menace. Sometimes vampires, Frankenstein's monsters, werewolves. In fact, he was a werewolf himself for a period of time. And then they would have shorter backup stories that were seemingly unrelated to the main story. But although many of the characters and creatures in the backup stories would later appear in one of the main stories. And then eventually they got rid of the backups, which allowed, at Don Glut's suggestion, which allowed him the opportunity to write longer Dr. Spektor stories, so that he could fill out the story somewhat. Okay, as I said, it was written by Don Glut, with art, interior and cover art by Jesse Santos, and initially in the run, the cover paintings were done by their George Wilson or one of their other regular cover artists, but soon Jesse Santos took over the doing the cover paintings. After that, Jesse Santos did the cover paintings for all the titles that he illustrated. And I love Jesse Santos' work. It's has an unusual style, but I love his work. And his style wouldn't fit very well with the other mainstream type comics, especially superheroes. But could work for westerns, and also work for war stuff. But he could do it, but it wouldn't look as good for like superhero stuff. And yeah, that's Jesse Santos, of course, and Don Glut is still around, although Jesse Santos is gone. And Don Glut is currently one of the editors and writers at the Warrant horror magazine. So that's Warrant, which was a series publications reminiscent of the Warren horror magazines, including some of the same creators who worked on those, as well as himself. So let's have a little look in here. This is Doomed in a Deadly Netherworld Where Mortals Fear to Tread. Oh, it's kind of creepy, but it's not the same spooky. This story isn't of a spooky type. Like this is more of a supernatural type thriller, less spooky horror like he is usually involved in. It's almost like a Doctor Strange type story. And here, now, this is Where Mortals Fear to Tread. And here we begin with Dr. Spektor, Adam Spektor. As always, is telling the story, and he's talking about at the beginning how he is lamenting to his up until just an issue or two before, he had his assistant and lover Lakota Rainflower with him, and she was upset and left him, and now he's lamenting that fact. Here, I wanted to show you. See, I mentioned before the hostess ads. This is Richie Rich in Gold Key. And Richie Rich was Harvey. As I said before, with just a few exceptions, the hostess ads in the Gold Key comics were featured characters from other publishers, although they did have some for some of their licensed characters. But I think it was primarily like Marvel, DC, and Harvey characters. Okay, and here he is, like he's at his desk, fixing himself a cup of tea when suddenly Lakota comes in and dressed in some traditional, because Lakota, of course, is I've forgotten, doesn't matter what tribe. She was an American Indian lady, and she comes rushing in some traditional costume, wielding a tomahawk, and comes in yelling at him and starts whacking away with that tomahawk. Then he suddenly comes awake. It was all a dream, nightmare, and there's knocking at the door, which woke him up. He goes to see, and he thinks it's Lakota. He thinks this is Lakota. But then the lady comes out of the shadows, and we see it's not. It's this gorgeous redhead. Who is she? She is Karina. She is the red-tressed witch in the service of the evil dark gods, who has been an enemy of Dr. Spektor's in a couple of previous issues, and she goes back to being goes way back in the ages. She was also a villain of Dagar's, and they had a recent encounter in which she no longer serves the dark gods. She's lost her powers, and because the dark gods are both Dagar's and Dr. Spektor's constant villains, wielding power through acolytes and stuff, as she was, and it makes mention of their previous encounter, just an issue or two before, when she had been using. This is one of the few crossovers, and she had been magically ensorcelled Dr. Solar, the man of the atom, and and was using him as a pawn in that previous story. But now she is completely powerless, and she is frightened, and she wants to say, said 3 days ago, my powers were drained off through my tiara by someone whose name I heard in my mind, the name of Rogata. Okay, so she comes to see, and she's always had a bit of a thing for Spektor anyway, and now without Lakota, she tries to cozy up to him and ask. She's seeking refuge basically out of fear and desperation, and but she still has her tiara, and she says she can still feel a certain attachment to it, and so she comes up. She tries to get close and tries to kiss. Almost called him Dagar, Spektor, and no, says, what's going on? Says, and it turns out the tiara does have some power, and they are both drawn through a dimensional portal to another parallel universe, and they come to rest on remnants of a planet. This is where, and this so that they don't know where they are yet, but all these weird-looking beings snatch Karina, and Spektor fights back and finds that they're not really, they're just pseudo beings. They're not real living beings. They capture them, take them to the palace, and this is where we meet Rogata herself. This blonde-haired, blue-skinned sorceress herself, and she describes how her world, which was directly parallel to Earth, she's been here for ages, for a seeming eternity, virtually alone, except for these beings that she had created. She had once ruled a world. And with the release of energy from the war between the dark gods and the warrior gods on Earth in ages past, it destroyed her world and killing all her subjects. She only survived by her own magic and maintaining this fragment of the world, of her world. And then it goes to show, and she is the one who drained off. Now she has some power because she drained off Karina's power herself, and takes her to her throne room or through her palace. And here is the pit. And this is the birthplace of I'll just call them putties because they're like the putties from Power Rangers. And she calls them the morphs. They're pseudo beings, and how she plans when the time is right, when what she describes as when the snake swallows the moon, will open a portal to Earth, and her morphs will rush through and to conquer the Earth for her, so she will have a world to rule again. And she loved the lovely artwork. He did such lovely faces, beautiful women, but he was great with men as well. And but then Karina falls into the pit. Because she wants, and now that her tiara has performed the function of bringing you to me, Adam. No, she tosses Karina into the pit and goes sploosh, and no, and Adam leaps in after her. It looks like lava, but it's not lava. But he sinks down below. And then we see something is happening, and suddenly, poosh! I thought we were both dead. And she goes, no, I have. Since I've been here, I've been able to absorb a little bit of my own power, and it exhausted myself, but it transported us here, out of the deadly clutches there, which is just on a shoreline, and then they go into hiding into a cave because all these morphs are tramping around, and they don't want to be discovered. and then they have to come up with a plan, and he comes up with an idea and a plan, and this is when she finally snuggles up and kisses him, because she admits that she loves him. So they have a plan, and they're working on a plan. Here they see the constellation in the sky of constellation, which looks like a serpent, which is swallowing the moon. And says, "Oh, he's got an idea," because he recognizes that the symbol on her tiara is the same as the symbol on an orb, a magical orb in the throne room of the blue lady. I suddenly forgotten her name. So he takes the tiara, and he sneaks into the palace. And it's just as the time is right. Her forces are assembled. She looks through the orb, and she can see an image of Earth, a cityscape, and they're almost ready to send her people, her morphs, through to conquer, when strange Spektor pops up and confronts her, and she's, "Oh," and he says he reconsidered her offer for him to stay with her and rule by her side, and so there she comes, lovey-dovey, because she's been so alone for so many centuries, a long dry spell. And she kisses him, and then she realizes, "Adam, what have you done to me?" And it was all a distraction for Karina to slip in another way. There she is, when she's there by the orb, because the orb is the source of her power, where she had absorbed all the power from Karina. Then they both go at it, because they're both able to absorb their magical sorcerer's power from that orb, and zap, zap, zap. They start zapping one another, and the morphs try to come to her aid, but Spektor snatches the orb, and then, as they suspected, whoever possesses the orb can control the morphs. And while the women are zapping at one another, starts bringing the castle down. The time has passed. It has gone beyond the time for the serpent to swallow the moon. The window is closed. "You spoiled everything, witch, and now you will pay for it most dearly." And she starts like force choking her, and then Spektor takes the orb and shatters it. And the blue lady no longer has the power, and Karina has her power back, and they're able to go back through space back to Earth, and says, "But my powers are another matter altogether," because she wants to stay with him, but he would never. If she were with him, he would never allow her to use her magic. So, says, "As far as those dark gods are concerned, they have no more control over me." Said, "You won't change your mind, Adam." And no, so she just kind of wisps away, and he wonders because he was attracted to her, because who wouldn't? She's a gorgeous redhead, but he's still in love with Lakota. And dun dun dun, that is the conclusion of that story. Do they meet again? Probably. I don't remember how much longer the title ran. And then have on for the text page, which is an interesting thing, Dr. Spektor's special files. Is Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom. This is ostensibly written by Adam Spektor himself. It's just a file on on the Man of the Atom, rehashing, re-mentioning his origin, and it also mentions what had happened, that in the years since Man of the Atom hadn't been around anymore. Turns out he was working for an agency, a government agency, secretly, who is basically S.H.I.E.L.D. without saying it's S.H.I.E.L.D., from Marvel Comics, before he got snatched and manipulated by Karina in a previous issue. So that is all I've got for you this time with The Occult Files of Dr. Spektor. Oh, that took a lot longer than I expected. But it's a lot of good, fun, nostalgic, because I loved the Gold Key mystery and thrilling titles from that period. So thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe, and do leave your comments down below. Do you like Dr. Spektor? Do you like other Gold Key mystery titles? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, comics are art.